Okay, this is Chuck Husay. I'm here with Don Wilkins. Don's worked with quite a few people who've gone through their own treatment for cancer.
Over 100 now.
Over 100, wow. With FEMCO. So, real quick, Don, what's FEMCO mean?
Well, everyone's heard of FECO. If you know anything about cannabis oil, it's full extract cannabis oil. Well, FEMCO implies a standard, and FEMCO stands for full extract medicinal cannabis oil, which means a THC level of 80% minimum and CBD levels of 3.5% minimum.
Okay, and what sort of results are you seeing with these 100 people that you've talked with and assisted?
Well, amazing, unbelievable, miraculous. From anything that you've ever seen with regular conventional Western medicine, it surpasses those expectations very quickly.
And do you want to talk about what prompted you to be interested?
Well, I lost my son to cancer, Matthew, over 3 years, and I didn't know about any of this at the time. And my initial reaction was go to the doctor and get whatever they recommend, which was chemotherapy, surgery, radiation, and he did not do well. There was little or no response to any of it. It was a very dark time.
Yeah. How old was Matthew?
He was 10 when he got sick, and he was 13 when he succumbed to it.
That's tough, man.
It is. But I wouldn't be doing this if that had not happened. So,
Right.
so then subsequently, I lost my dad the year before my son. Then about 2.5 years after that, I got cancer, and I treated it myself with some plant extracts, cannabis oil being one of them, and was amazed to find out not only that it healed me, but it also healed me physically. You know, my body feels better, younger, skin, everything, eyes sharper, hearing better. It's an unbelievable thing to put into your body, and the results that you get from it. And I'm 49 years old, and most people don't believe that.
Wow. So what other things have you seen people using the FEMCO oil for besides cancer?
My focus has been specifically with cancer, although recently we've been branching out with different people are saying, hey, does it work with this? Does it work with that? MS being one of them. Diabetes is another one, and there have been a lot of miscellaneous ailments where people just have some type of funky skin disorder. One in particular, if you're a member of our FEMCO group, you know that we have a gentleman, his name is Chuck, and he has this missing flesh, and he's had it for 13 years. And he started with his FEMCO, and 10 days later, it's 30% healed up, the pain is gone, and those are the kind of things that we see. And it doesn't really seem to matter what's wrong with you. If you've got something wrong with you, it tends to go after it. Now, it's not going to fix everything, but we haven't tried it on everything yet. And most of the things that we've tried it on, when I say most of the things, it has actually worked on everything that people have used it for. It may not cure it completely, but it always tremendously improves whatever your problem is with little or no side effects.
So the things that we know of are cancer, MS, Crohn's disease,
Lyme disease, right.
Great. One of the
Celiac disease
that
is
I
another
like
one.
about it is it's a natural product,
Yes.
right? So that means it's, and I think it's water soluble. So that means if your body doesn't need it, then whatever's there excess from taking care of you, it's just going to pass it through.
Right.
You're not going to have any after effects like you might with pharmaceutical medications.
Right. And the oil, typically how it's made and what you find, it isn't water soluble. Our bodies are water, and this is oil.
Right.
So ours goes through a process in an FDA approved lab where they add an excipient, which allows you to fully utilize and for the oil to be 100% bioavailable in your body, and it's all natural, and there's nothing artificial or harmful added to any of it.
Got it. What's the number one question you get asked when somebody's asking about the results you've seen or the processes that they that people have gone through? What's the number one question?
Well, everybody wants to tell their story, and I guess the number one question is, I have X. Will it work with this? And I've had people who've had breast cancer, and then I have someone else who has breast cancer, and it's estrogen positive, triple, and so someone else will come along who has that very same thing, and they think that matters. And I guess that's the biggest thing. Everybody thinks that they're different. And that's the thing that I've noticed, is that it tends to take like a shotgun approach to your health. It doesn't matter what's wrong with you.
Right.
It just fixes it. And so, at least what I've seen so far. Now, and that's kind of that's really the big thing. It's like, I've seen this over and over and over again, and I've yet to meet anyone who's worked with as many people as I have. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't someone out there.
Right.
But the more I do this, the more I'm finding that, very few people know as much about it as I do. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't make me anything other than someone who has not met someone. I know he's out there, and I really want to meet him because I've learned a lot, but I think about someone else who's done this who I could collaborate with and learn what they know, and we could kind of pool what we know together.
Right. So what is when somebody actually decides to do this, what gets delivered to them? What do they start with?
Well, first, of course, cannabis oil contains THC, so we would never encourage anyone to break any laws. You have to recognize all local, state, and federal laws. So before we say anything, that's one thing that needs to be addressed. But having said that, say, for example, you're living in a legal state and you have complied and you now have cannabis oil. What do you do with it? A lot of people have mistaken impressions of it. They think that you can eat edibles like baking goods, and those things are good for you. They do have health benefits, but if you're going after something serious, a stage 4 cancer, and you don't have a lot of time left, you need oil extract, and in this case what we call femco, the medicinal extract, which contains at least 80% THC. From what we have seen, it's very, very quick. And when we say quick to show results, 2 weeks, you see a significant reduction, and we've got a number of people, I'd say 80% of them see an elimination on a scan of their evidence of cancer within 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
And interestingly, the only time that seems to change is if you've had chemo, radiation, and surgery. It's a lot longer road. It takes a lot longer. It's a lot less dramatic. The results, they still happen, but it takes longer, and there's just a lot. It seems like there's a lot more for the medicine to do, which is kind of a message there. So,
sure. Well, you've got a bunch of chemicals in your body that have to
right.
be removed. And you mentioned stage 4, but typically, if we're at a place of medical diagnosis, it's late. It's 2, 3, or 4, and there's not time to wait.
Yeah.
Because the mechanisms aren't in place to actually catch these things early yet. We just don't have those in place. So we don't notice. We're busy with life, and we don't have a mechanism that says, "Hey, you're headed down the path of doing this." So
right.
So if somebody starts the process, like what happens? Like how does it affect them?
So the process actually is very similar. It doesn't seem to matter what's wrong with you. So what typically happens is that you start to eat it, depending on the severity of your conditions. If you're going after something like Crohn's, I'd say twice a day that you would eat it. You put it in your gums. If you had cancer, 3 times a day. Late stage cancer, you want to keep your system saturated. So what generally people do is they'll dry off a little spot on their lip. They take some on a toothpick or something like that, and you just apply it in your lip, usually after you've eaten, so that you don't want to masticate any food up in that area so that you carry it down into your stomach, because stomach acid will burn it. Smoking it burns it. And when you burn it, you destroy medicinal benefit. So by putting it in the mouth and allowing that excipient to take it into your bloodstream, you get that 100% bioavailability of the oil. So what happens when you eat it like that? Typically, depending on how sick a person is, they can go to sleep anywhere from 1 day to 10 days. And I would say that someone who's stage 4, the average is kind of 4 or 5 days. And when I say sleep, you sleep for like 22 out of 24 hours.
How's it? How does it make you feel? I mean, 85% THC seems like a pretty high number. So what happens?
It is, and everybody is different. That's funny that you mentioned that, because I always love making this comparison when people say, how's it going to make me feel? Well, you will definitely feel the medicine. It generally takes about 3 or 4 hours before you feel it, but when you do, so I know some children who the parents have chosen to go this route with, or so I've heard. I didn't witness it firsthand, but I know that from what I had heard, those children took a tremendous amount of oil, and that the levels that they took, I was very surprised. So, on the flip side, I had a gentleman who had melanoma in the brain. It had metastasized to his brain, and he was taking the oil, and he was probably taking 10 times less than this child was taking, because he couldn't handle it. So, when you look at it that way, it's like, it's not what you would expect. It's not like other substances. Some people are more sensitive, and some are not. And that's really the trick about the medicine. It's all about the faster you can take it, the faster you get better. But then you have to kind of balance that side effect and make sure that you are still functioning in a comfortable way if you have that luxury.
Have you encountered, I guess I would say, resistance because of sort of belief systems, or what we've been taught about things that are illegal, or
Oh yes,
that sort of thing? So
oh yes.
What's your feedback on that?
The war on drugs has been a war to ensnare your mind. Once you start to see over and over and over, people go from just a horrible quality of life, Chuck with his leg, I mean, pain for 13 years, and to have something fix it this fast, and have things like that happen, and watch that, you kind of start to look at this and say, I think the reason why they're so uptight about this is because if everybody knew how strong it was and what it did for your body, you'd had 90% less sick people running around. So that's really the threat, because you don't make money off people who are healthy, or not unless you change your entire thinking about how a society works. I mean, when you really think about people who are energized and they wake up feeling good, and their minds are sharp, that's kind of the breeding ground for a very fertile economy. But we'd have to shift our thinking away from this whole, taxing living off of others to even go there.
Right. So is the process initially something that people get used to? So you've got a new thing in your system. Is it something that over a week or so you start to get used to having it in your system, or how does that work?
You do definitely become more accustomed to it. There's a lot of things. These are the things that I help people with, because there's a tremendous amount of energy that is available to you, and that's usually what most people they find uncomfortable, because they don't know how to channel that energy. So, and when I say that energy, the energy of the medicine giving you the feeling in your body that it does. So there are things that you can do to kind of direct that energy and use that energy, meditation and so forth. All of these things are very healing. But people who've never done any of that, it's usually something you have to kind of help them through. But I've yet to have anyone who has not yet said it wasn't beneficial for them when dealing with that side effect.
And what have you seen as the typical time frame for somebody to stay on a full strength Femco oil?
Well, that's something that I think I'd be making a mistake to put any kind of a time frame on that. I mean, what have I seen? Most people, like I said, they see that recovery in 2 weeks, 3 weeks tops, even if it's severe, minus the people who've done chemo and radiation. So what does that mean? Well, there's a lot of things out there. If you've Googled it all, you've seen the 90 grams in 90 days, 60 grams in 60 days. And, that's how things kind of started out with Rick Simpson and so forth. And things have just kind of graduated from there to where now, the idea of doing a gram a day of Femco is ludicrous. A gram should last you anywhere from a week to 10 days. So a gram is a lot, and it's just so we have kind of incorporated. When I say we, those who I do have some experience similar to mine, we kind of trade war stories. And we've settled in on the 2 months. Now, you don't do the 60 grams in 60 days, but you carry it out for 2 months. And then after that, introduce a maintenance program. And the maintenance program has been suggested to be around 10% of the treatment program. So it's significantly less and very, very manageable.
But that's going to be very individualized, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
because everybody's cancer is different because it's unique to them.
This medicine is very individualized, and people are so, again, they're so trained by, you read your label, and to think that you can tell someone, take 2 times a day, don't overdose, to this, it doesn't work for everybody. So that's what I usually encourage people, is to kind of find what works for you. Do a little experimentation, see how things work out for you. Now, I know some people who are on a maintenance program, and they like the feeling of their medicine. And so what they'll do is, instead of taking a tiny bit once a day, they'll wait 7 or 10 days, and then they'll take a big dose. And they just kind of relax and enjoy their day and enjoy their medicine, for lack of a better word.
But that's even something that you could do before bedtime, right? If you felt like you didn't want to, be awake during the maintenance time, you could.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So once you've gotten past the major part of the crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So why don't you take us through, like, day 1, week 1, month 1? What's that like for people, typically, from what you've seen?
So day 1 is, as I said, you dry that spot, and generally what I suggest that people do is, most of the people have no experience with this medicine. Like, they'll come to me and they'll say, I've never even smoked a joint. I've never done anything. I have one gentleman right now, I won't say his name because he's still in treatment, but he's 77 years old. He's going to be 78 this month. And his wife looks like one of the Golden Girls, So he has stage 4 colon cancer that has metastasized to his liver, in addition to prostate cancer, and a host of other, I'm 77 years old, problems. He's doing fantastic. His liver was bulging out of his stomach, and 10 days into his, 10 days, let's call it 2 weeks. I think it was 10 days, but 2 weeks into his Femco is 3 times its normal size liver's now back inside. He's walking 10 minutes a day. I just spoke with him yesterday, and he's doing so much better. So let's use him as an example. So he went through that period where he slept. Now, he probably slept for about 7 days. And heavy urination, that's another thing that comes on. You can have a lot of other bathroom time that is particularly foul. And it's really, really important to drink water during that time. Now, usually that period that you're sleeping, well, you're just out. You wake up, you're lucky if you can drink some water. You usually don't feel much like eating. You go back to sleep. Then you enter the phase where you're not sleeping as much. You feel kind of fluish. And that's anywhere from day 5 to day 10, 12, 14, depending on how long you sleep. So then you enter this kind of fluey period where you're laying on the sofa, and you just, I don't feel good. I don't really feel like eating. And again, that can last anywhere from 2 days to a week. Then you kind of come into the stage where you sort of start noticing little things that you feel like you have a little more energy, or, you know what, today I want to go do X, maybe something to get out of the house, and so you just notice these changes over time, and by the time that first month is over, you're feeling quite a bit better. And things that have bothered you for some time, in my case, I had this pain in my right foot. I really don't know what it was, but it started out, I'd get it every now and then when I'd wake up in the morning, and then at some point, maybe around 47 years old, it was there every day. And I'd stamp my foot a little bit in the morning. Long story short, I noticed when taking the medicine, there was a little itching and, down there. Now it's gone. I don't have it anymore. And those are the kind of things that you notice. Other health benefits and so forth.
Right. So what are the objections that people give you about figuring this out? I mean, the choice that they have, typically if you have cancer, is chemotherapy and radiation.
Yeah.
Or there, other clinics try to do natural solutions. Those don't always have an efficacy rate that's really good for that sort of thing. So what sort of things do people typically object to when they're...
Honestly, I don't get a lot of objections. And not to say that they're not out there, but I think the people who filter in as far as to meet me or who finally find me on their road, they're past the point of questioning this. They're past the point of, I'm not sure how I feel, or this is a drug, or and it's bad for you. Most of them, they have just enough information and knowledge to know that there's a good thing here, and they're hungry for more information. Well, that's the idea of the video. That's kind of like we were talking today. What's happening now is I can't keep up.
Right.
And these conversations seem to be repeating themselves. People ask me to answer what happens the first week, how do I do this? And so putting this out there so that people have a place that, well, they can kind of read or they can watch the video and then they can decide, do I want to learn more? And if so, we're structuring things on the other side so that the people who've gone through this, not just myself, but the people who I've worked with who are now done, reach out to me, reach out to them. We have resources, but this video should give you enough information so that if you want to go further.
Is it cost prohibitive to people?
It used to be a lot more cost prohibitive than it used to be. As in, it was around $10,000.
A month?
No, $10,000 for a treatment.
Okay.
So to get through it, and then you'd still have your maintenance dose if that was something you felt you needed to do. And again, different people are different. If you're clean in a week and a half or 2 weeks of stage 4 cancer, you might think a whole lot less about your maintenance dose than someone who, say, battled it for 5 weeks and had a tough time, and so you kind of make your own decision. But as far as the cost, it's about 75% less than what it used to be.
Right. And that's still going to be person dependent.
Of course.
Because there's the individualized nature of whatever their
right
ailment with the disease or whatever it is they have going on is. Okay. So anything else that you would want people to know who are using this video to save you from repeating yourself 27 times a day? What are the other things that you see people asking that you answer a lot that we haven't already covered?
A lot of people ask, how can I get it because of where they live? And that's something that it's really difficult to answer in a video. And there's a culture that is emerging from this that even the government can't keep up with it fast enough. That everyone who knows anything about this is very frustrated with where the government is. And so you look at that and you think, I'm going to die. This isn't happening fast enough for me. So you get creative, and I have seen people do some very creative things. As I said earlier, you got to obey all local, state, and federal laws. They are there for your protection.
Right. But
so
people do travel to the states, Washington, Colorado,
they do. California,
places where prescriptions can be used to
absolutely
to do that. So it's really a question of, for anyone really, it's a question of, do I want something that's I know is not good for me, chemotherapy, radiation, or do I want to do something that has all the possibility without all of that side effect and
right.
detrimental effect, not
right.
just side effect, but is that something that I want to do? And then it becomes a function of family help, whatever they need to do. Have you seen any people with family resistance? So you've got somebody who says, hey, I'm going to do this, but the family is resistant to them doing it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And what usually happens is you'll get a daughter who wants their dad to do it. And the dad is, reefer madness, old school, right, and just thinks that pot stuff, and it's very, very frustrating for them. I'd say that happens, several times a day. Usually I recognize it quick enough that I say, go see if it's something that they're open to, because this is not something you talk someone into.
Right.
You help someone who's already made up their mind that this is what they want to do, and then you educate them on, if you want to do this, let me tell you how you should do it based on what I've seen. And things have changed so much. Like even in the past year, a year ago, people who came to me, they had done chemo, they'd done radiation, some version of Western medicine, and that's when there was this big body of evidence where I saw that It just didn't happen as fast for them as it did. I did get people who would come along and, I just found out I have cancer. It's stage 4. I want to try something natural first. So they would.
Right.
And it would work for them much better than it did for the others. So here, just 1 year later, I'd say 90% of the people that, whereas before it was maybe 20, 90% of the people who are seeking out this type of medicine are saying, I just found out I'm not going near chemo or radiation. I want to try something natural first. And the beautiful thing is, 2 weeks is usually enough that you can tell if this is going to work for you, it will work quickly.
In my work in the what I'll call integrative medical coaching world, because I've coached people with cancer prior to being knowledgeable about this particular opportunity, I guess is the way to put it, is that these are the things they have to ask themselves. Like, what's my vision for my health? And what's going on in my own head for my own self-talk, my narrative, because that's going to have an effect. And we really do encourage them to bring their family along for that discussion, as opposed to coming to the family and saying, hey, guess what I'm doing? And dealing with the family's sometimes negative reaction. We want to get into the family's vision too. Do you want this person to live? Then what are our choices, and how do we honor their wishes for their health and make that work so that they can get healthy? Because all of these pieces, as you mentioned, meditation, natural medicines, belief systems, self-talk, all have an effect on our health and our ability to recover from whatever we're dealing with.
Right.
So I think it's exceptional that we have something like this to be able to do. And hopefully, at some point, we get to the place where the states are at least to the point of medical use for all the states. And I think that's going to happen at the federal government level. I think the current administration has done some things to help progress with that. I know they pulled some things off the shelf just this week in terms of regulatory hoops to go through. So at least there's somebody looking at how do we do this that's working. And I thought of one more that I wanted to mention. A lot of what we're seeing online now is kids or people with epilepsy or seizures, those kinds of things, and how it's really helping in that arena too. And anybody that can look at a child that has any kind of ailment and say, I want to go this route where they could be on 25 pills or whatever, versus doing something natural that really you can see a difference in such a short time.
Yeah.
Is going to want to know about this. So thanks for your time. I appreciate all the information.
Of course.
And hopefully this helps any of the listeners or viewers out there be able to get more of an idea about whether they want to pursue this as a solution.
Well, and that's really why I did it in the first place, was I found that the more I went and helped people along, those people, they get healed and they move on and they tell their story and they tell other people. And now that's why this is becoming such a difficult thing to manage, because here it is, X many people now have told X many people, and I get a lot of people trying to contact me, and it's becoming difficult to, when you get a message and someone says, you got to help me, I'm dying, you make time for it. But the more people that contact you like that, the more time you have to make. You have to have enough time to help them.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate
Welcome.
it.